Hey, everybody! I have a really cool gig coming up with the Eggmen. They are a Beatles tribute band here in Austin, Texas. And they've got a gig where they're going to be playing with a couple of different symphony orchestras over the course of an afternoon. And then they have asked me to sit in and play keyboards with them for this gig. So I will be getting to play some of my favorite iconic Beatles keyboard parts along with a great band and a couple of symphony orchestras. So that's going to be cool. I thought I would take this opportunity to kind of show you how I crafted my sounds for this gig using a combination of Gig Performer 4, which you see here, and Reason is what I use for my keyboard sounds. I've been using Reason for many, many years. Always loved Reason in my studio. But when I started playing some more keyboards live, I found a hard time getting a good workflow with Reason, a good live gigging workflow using Reason by itself. So I hit up the Reason forums, and a user turned me on to Gig Performer 4. You can use any plugin in Gig Performer 4, but it's geared towards live gigging. And it's amazing, and I love it, and it was exactly what I needed. I've only just started using it. This will be my first gig ever using it. I love it. It is super powerful. It is perfect for live gigging using soft synth plugins like Reason or whatever you want to use. It's capable of way more than what I'm doing with it. I'm using it very simply. This is not going to be like a comprehensive tutorial on how to use Gig Performer 4 or Reason or anything like that. I kind of wanted to walk you through how I got to the sounds for these particular Beatles songs, in case that's helpful to anyone. I will go into a few options. Global MIDI, I do have on my controller, I have two buttons assigned to next variation slash song part and previous variation slash song part. You'll see what those are a little later. So one important option is under set lists. By default, if I remember correctly, this next previous song part stays within the song was toggled on by default. Now I don't like that because then, day in the life, I have two parts to the song. I have main and the end. So using my next previous keys I've set up, I can toggle between these two parts. But with that option on, and I'm hitting previous right now and nothing's happening, like it's not going back to the next song because, as that option says, it stays within the song. I don't like that. So I turn that off. Now I can hit next to go to the next part, previous to go to the previous part. If I hit previous again, it'll go to the previous song. If I hit next, it'll go to the next song. So that's the behavior I like. That way, next or previous goes to either next or previous part, if there is one, and then if there's not one, it'll just go on to the next or previous song, which is great because then I can use the same two buttons to scroll, just keep scrolling. Next part or next song, whichever is applicable. All right, so let's get into the actual meat of things here. As you can see, I can show all the songs I've currently made, or I've arranged in the set list because we have two different orchestras we're playing with. So we have gig number 1 and gig number 2. So these are all what they call my rack spaces. These are like all my different sound setups. I have a different rack space for every different song. You don't have to do this. You can reuse rack spaces, like for example, let's go to Hey Jude. Hey Jude is a piano. You could be like, oh, well, you know what? Lady Madonna is a piano also. I'll just use that. If I was over here in set list, for example, we go to Hey Jude. Down here it shows that I'm using the Hey Jude rack space. Go up to song, Lady Madonna is using the Lady Madonna rack space, which I have a different piano sound because it sounds different. But like you could just have one piano, and if I wanted to under the Lady Madonna song, I could use the Hey Jude rack space. So my point being, you could just have a generic piano rack space that you use every time you need a piano. I have separate rack spaces for every song just because I wanted to try to match the song as perfectly as possible. So instead of just using a generic piano anytime there's a piano, I wanted to try to specifically match the piano of the song. So I have like Hey Jude, Lady Madonna, and Long and Winding Road. Those are all pianos, but to me they're all very different pianos. Hey Jude is, and then you got Lady Madonna, which is very different with very sloppy, but you get the idea. And then Long and Winding Road is a whole different piano with so you can see why I didn't just want one big generic piano. So yes, I have a rack space for every single song. You don't have to do that if you find you're going to reuse sounds. One of the great things about this whole workflow is there's so many different ways to go about things. There's not one way. Let me go back to the options for a second and show you something that I've changed again under setlist. When you create a new song, by default, if you don't change anything, it's going to create 3 parts under that song. It's going to create like intro, verse, chorus. I didn't need that. 9 times out of 10, all I need is 1 section. So I changed the default parts to be just 1. It says main. It used to have 3 in here if you're using it right out of the box without changing anything. So when I create a brand new song, it's just going to have 1 section under it, main. So let's start with All You Need Is Love. Let's come back over here to the wiring panel, because this is generally where you're going to start stuff. I created the All You Need Is Love rack space. So I got my MIDI going in, Reason going out. Pretty self-explanatory. Let's open up Reason. In Reason, I have the Abbey Road keyboards refill, which is awesome, and I love it. However, there's no harpsichord in that. And All You Need Is Love is just the only keyboard part in it really is a harpsichord. So I just loaded up a harpsichord, threw a little bit of reverb on it. So that one was nice and simple. I didn't really have to do much on that at all, and that was good enough. Worked for me. I operate under what I call the minimum required force principle, which means I don't tweak just for the sake of tweaking. I tweak if I feel it needs something. But if I can just load up a sound, and that sound is good, great. I'm done. I don't feel the need like, well, I need to now throw some EQ and some compression and some... this one I felt needed just a little bit of room verb. I'll go down to Hey Jude. Again, super simple. Even though I have the Abbey Road keyboards, the only piano they have in the Abbey Road keyboards refill, I believe, is the Shallon upright piano. And Hey Jude was played on a grand piano. If I remember correctly, I think I read that it was the same grand piano Bohemian Rhapsody was recorded on. So man, that's an epic grand piano. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I read that. So I just loaded up this default Reason sound called Bright Piano. I did try a whole bunch of different grand piano sounds, and I just thought this one was the closest to the sound of Hey Jude. Lady Madonna was, again, pretty easy because in the Abbey Road keyboard refills, there's a style patch called Mad on a Lady, which is obviously meant to be Lady Madonna. For my tastes, they had that D-tune up just a little bit too high. Like I just, something didn't quite sound right. So I did this. I took the D-tune all the way down. They play them for you back to back. I'll play first the preset and then my alteration taking the D-tune of it down. Sloppy, but yeah, you can hear mine a lot drier than this one with all that detuning on it. To be fair, they're both kind of cool, and I wasn't sure which I liked better, but the more I listened to the recording, I just thought the drier one sounded more accurate. I didn't hear that much detune effect on it. It's just a preset, but with the detune turned all the way down. Here Comes the Sun was pretty easy. I found a Moog sound within Reason. I don't remember the exact title because I've renamed it, Here Comes the Sun, but I didn't do much to it. The only keyboard part I heard was this little Moog synthesizer. It comes throughout the song. You hear it right in the beginning, after the guitar plays through the riff once, and then it comes in with... And I thought, sounds pretty good to me already. Now, here's what was cool, though. I totally lucked out with this one because later on in the song, during the bridge, there's also a Moog sound, but it's a little bit not quite as smooth. It's got a little more edge to it. And so I thought I was going to have a different sound, but then I discovered it was already programmed to respond to the mod wheel. Listen as I turn the mod wheel up. That works out perfectly for the bridge when it gets a little harsher and starts playing this part. was like, well, great. I don't have to do anything but turn the mod wheel up. It was already programmed there for me. Woohoo! And then a little bit later in this song, there's a couple of notes. It gets a little LFO on it, a little bit of wavery vibrato. So I wanted this. See, it gets all wavy there. It does that on just a couple of notes. So I asked myself, how can I do that? Well, we go over to the panels here in Gig Performer. If you edit the panels, you can throw in all kinds of knobs and sliders and buttons and cool stuff. So I just dragged in 2 purple sliders here, as you can see, and then I assigned them. Click on them under here. You select which plugin. I selected the Reason Rack plugin. I selected the LFO 2 amount of Subtractor 1. Now, if you'll notice here in the wiring scheme, if you look, the sound is actually 2 synths. So I need to affect the LFO2 amount of both these at once. You'll see I have 2 sliders. One is set to the LFO2 amount of the first synth, and the other one is LFO2 amount of the second synth. Super easy to do, too. You can either scroll through his list of parameters to find the one you want, but even better yet, learn the parameter. Click on it, jiggle it, and it will automatically assign it. So that's what I did. I was like, I clicked that, went over, turned the knob, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm now assigned to that knob perfectly. So now when I turn my slider on my MIDI controller up and down, you can see both these sliders go up and down. And then if we look back here in Reason Rack, notice here's the LFO2 amount right here. It's going up and down. And this is for the second synth, going up and down, which again allows me to do this. Which was exactly what I wanted. That's where the panels come in, is we start assigning sliders and knobs, assigning those to various parameters of whatever plugin you're using. All right, let's go over here to Strawberry Fields. Super easy, because once again, in the Abbey Road keyboard's refill for Reason, there's a style patch, Strawberry Feel. The actual song is between keys because it's spliced together from 2 different takes that were recorded in 2 different keys and at different tempos. So they had to mesh these takes together by speeding one up slightly and slowing one down slightly to make them match in pitch and match in tempo to get the final result that you know today. To me, it's closest to the key of E, but I found out the band does it in F. So I was like, oh, well, I've already learned this in E. What do I do? Well, easy. I came up here to my MIDI Omni block. Look at that, transpose 1 semitone. Now, I could do that on my keyboard as well, but I don't want to have to remember to do that. And then I don't want to have to remember to undo that before the next song. So I just have it right here set in the song. That's an E. I'm playing an E note. Then when I go to this patch, I'm playing that same note, but it now sounds as an F because I have that transpose already built into the sound by 1 semitone. So I'm playing an E, but it's actually coming out in F. All right, I'm the Walrus. This was one of my favorites to construct. So I'm the Walrus was played on a pianette. There is no pianette sound in the Abbey Road's refill, sadly, so I couldn't rely on them. But I did find a pianette sound just in Reason. So far, I've been so impressed with Reason. Every time I've needed a sound, I go searching, and there's one in there. It works. So I found a pianette. I was like, all right, well, it's got the basics of this sound, but man, nothing like the album. I feel like the album was a lot brighter, had a little bit of grit on it, like a little overdrive maybe. I feel like it had some modulation on it, you know, maybe some kind of chorusing or flanging. This just was not doing it for me. So I started thinking, well, I'll probably need to add some overdrive, maybe some chorus, maybe some reverb, maybe some compression, blah, blah, blah. I started browsing the effects in Reason to decide what I wanted to put on there, and I came across this rotary speaker, and I was like, wait a minute, I think that might accomplish everything I need, because the rotary speaker will give the modulation I need. It's got drive built in, and I can affect the EQ by affecting this blend knob between the drum and the horn. The drum being the more low-end frequencies, the horn being the more high-end frequencies. So I threw this on, drive to smooth instead of crunch, cranked it up to about there, cranked the blend all the way to 95% horn, which was a lot closer, I thought. Bare bones, naked pianette sound. And And in just this plug-in alone, by adjusting the crunch and the blend between the drum and the horn, gave me this. And then I just threw a little bit of room verb on there and just a little bit of compression. Which I was pretty happy with. And I loved that it only took me one plugin to do 3 different things I needed to do. Next up was Something. Not a lot of keys on this, just a little bit of organ. So I went ahead and used the Abbey Road keys again, and I pulled up one of their organs from the Hammond RT3 organ. And it's just on the chorus. It's the only time it comes in. And I was happy. Next up is Piggies, which I was quite surprised when it turned out to be probably the hardest thing that I learned. There's some really, really great playing. Chris Thomas played the harpsichord on that. He produced a couple of tunes on the White Album, or the self-titled The Beatles album, as it's actually called, when George Martin was on vacation. And so he was producing Piggies, and there was a harpsichord set up in the other room for a classical session, and they were like, hey, let's use that. And he played the harpsichord part. I started out just the dry harpsichord by itself. That just did not cut it for me. When you listen to the recording, it's quite layered. I don't know what all's going on there, but I hear several layers, possibly several harpsichords. It sounded like I was hearing notes in several different octaves. This is one of my favorite little tools in Reason called the note echo. I have the step length all the way down because I don't actually use it to echo. I just have it double what I'm playing in other octaves. This indicates turning on or off the original note that you're playing. This second note for the pitch, I have it all the way up in octave. So here's the original just with nothing. Turn that second one on and you hear it's being doubled in octave above now. So that was better. But it still did not quite sound right, not quite full enough. So I added a second step, an octave above that. Here's just the harpsichord by itself. Then we added an octave above that. And then I added another octave above that. And now I was finally pretty happy with this. And then, of course, I just added a little bit of room reverb in that. And I was happy with that. For Across the Universe, the only thing I really heard for me to play was there's kind of a little choir stuff going on the chorus. So I used, within Reason, the Humana plugin here, set on the Venus Voices. Venus dressed is just one of the presets. Worked for me because it's a very minor part. It's gonna change my world. Nothing's gonna change my world. For Long and Winding Road, it's just piano. So I just pulled up a grand piano. I went through a couple, found the one that I thought sounded closest to the recording. Again, threw just a little bit of medium room reverb on that. So next up I learned before they go into A Day in the Life, they like to play the Sgt. Pepper Reprise. So that way it's just like it is in the album. At the end of the album, they do the Sgt. Pepper Reprise, goes into Day in the Life. There's not actually any keyboard once I was listening, but there are a couple of electric guitars. I decided to kind of double one of the electric parts with sort of an overdriven organ kind of thing, like this. But, which evokes the feel, if nothing else, and it'll help fill it in live. Nothing special going on here. I literally just pulled up my old trusty buddy, the Abbey Road keyboard refill, and I just pulled up Pale Ambient Blend. Oh yeah, I did do some, this was already on there, but I switched up all these a little bit. I turned on the body, turned on the, gave it a little more juice, a little more. Here, let me turn it off so you can hear this without it. And you turn it on, just gives it a little more overdrive, a little more body. There you go, I was done with that. It's just a little quickie before we go into A Day in the Life. All right, so for A Day in the Life, you'll see it's the only song where I actually have two different song sections, or variations as they call them. One and the end. If we go into set list view here, you'll see I'm on the song, and again, you'll see main, the end. You see them up here too. I start off, again, just using one of their presets from the Abbey Road keyboard refills. Under Style Patches, you'll see one called Life in a Day. Pretty great, as is. So that's what I use for the whole main song. And then, of course, I have the end. Which, as we know, the end has that big, giant crashing chord. I think it was 5 people all playing an E chord on 3 different pianos. So for that big end crashing chord, I have that same piano pulled up in a second instance here. But I have once again added my friend, the note repeater, which you will remember from the Piggies harpsichord. And so again, this patch itself was made up of 3 different versions of that piano, the close mic, the classic top, and the ambience mic. So I threw the note repeater on 2 of them, and on each of these 2, I did the same thing where I double it 1 octave up, double it 2 octaves up. Let me turn all this off first so you can kind of hear as is. And then turn these on. Now we get this. Each note I play is doubled an octave up and 2 octaves up. Let me turn them off to show you again that big crashing final chord. Au natural without the doubling. Now let me turn on my 2 octave doubler, and now we get. It's just a lot fuller because we have more octaves. Instead of 1 octave, we have 3. And so what I did to wire that up is, as you can see, I threw 2 big switches on here. For most of the song, I just have the piano on and the end is off. But when I go to the end, see variations, they remember the settings of this stuff. So through most of the song, I'm just playing the piano. And then for the end, we turn on the second instance of that piano, which also has the 2 octaves of doubling. I leave that one on too, just because why not? It makes it fuller and louder. So we have the original piano plus 3 more pianos, 2 of them doubled in 2 octaves. For most of the song, we have this. And then for the big ending, we have this. This is also a really good example of ways you can customize stuff, because to turn each of those on and off, I have dragged switches, go into edit mode here, dragged switches over, and then they're assigned to bypass plugin of each of the plugins. The piano, that's the main one, and then the end. Now, something I didn't like though is by default, when you assign it to bypass plugin, then when it's on, that means the plugin is bypassed because the bypass is on. But that didn't really work for my brain. My brain, I wanted to think of it as the sound was on or off, not that bypass was on or off. So you can come down here to value and you can click reverse. So I reversed it so that when it's up, the plugin is on, and when it's down, it's bypassed, just because that's the way my personal brain wanted it to work. Also, I thought it worth mentioning, both Piggies and Across the Universe, the band does in a different key as well than the recording. So I did the same thing. I have Piggies transposed 1 semitone down, and Across the Universe transposed 1 semitone up. So it makes it nice and easy. I don't have to remember anything. I can just step through my sounds when I'm live and it will automatically be correct. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of Gig Performer 4. Obviously a big fan of Reason and all the sounds there. But once again, Gig Performer 4 will work with any plugin you want to use. Doesn't have to be Reason. That just happens to be what I'm using for sounds. Yeah, this was a game changer for me as far as managing soft synths and plugin sounds and stuff live. Gig Performer 4, totally worth it in my opinion. So there you go. I hope that was somehow remotely helpful or entertaining, or at least somehow valuable to you in some way, shape, or form. Like and subscribe, and also more importantly, just like me in real life. Just like me. I need to be loved. Okay, love you. Bye.